which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For a roll call, all 5 board members are present. Let's next move to approval of the agenda, and we have a few items to remove.
I ask that you remove the items that are listed on the agenda, and they are indicated as listed here, as well as with strikeout marks on the agenda. There are a few extras tonight. We are trying to get positions filled, and so we listed them with hopes that we would have people for the positions. Most of them are in personnel.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve the agenda as modified. Do we have a motion for approval? Mrs. Keene makes the motion. Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from August. Mr. Hall makes the motion. Mr. Nelson will second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Delegations,
We have none at this time.
presentation.
I've asked Mr. Wells to join us today. He is the principal at Ritchie County High School. As you know, we've been going over and discussing a lot of the legislative changes that have had some impact on different areas of the school system. And today, Mr. Wells is going to review some changes that have impacted athletics and the safety of student athletes. As we know in Ritchie County, and with sadness, Boone County this weekend has experienced the loss of an athlete in one of their in one of their middle schools. No.
You said Boone?
It was in Boone County.
Okay.
And with that, it brings great sadness and tragedy to a community. And we, in our situation, have experienced that, and we never, and we pray we never do that again. But with that, our legislation and our WVSSAC has governed many things and have things in place to help us to prepare parents, student athletes, and coaches to make sure that we have things in place to be able to respond quickly in situations. And I have asked Mr. Wells to review some of the policies and steps that we have to ensure are in place, and to let you know some things that we have done at our level. So, Mr. Wells, if you don't mind.
Well, I appreciate Ms. Hunt giving me the opportunity just to speak just for a few minutes about what are some of the policies and procedures that we do have in place at Ritchie County High School. It's going to be a quick presentation, hopefully, just to review everything with you. We're going to talk about our emergency action plans that we have in place, our sudden cardiac arrest protocols, concussion protocols, and what are some of the coaching requirements that coaches need to go through on an annual basis to make sure that they are prepared for any type of emergency. So the first thing are emergency action plans. This came about in around 2017 when they first legislated this, and things had to be cleared up just a little bit on this past legislation on what needed to be included. Our emergency action plans are to be submitted annually, and they have to be submitted before the first day of practice. Sometimes it's difficult for coaches to know who's even going to be on the team, but they have to look at previous rosters and make sure that they are adding people to the emergency action plan that they anticipate being on the team, but we can always make changes if they don't show up. Appropriate personnel have to be trained in first aid, CPR, and AED in case there's an emergency on school grounds. This also would extend to any practice location that may be off-site, or any venue that you're playing on the road. Those coaches are trained for emergency situations no matter where they arise. There has to be an informational meeting prior to the start of each athletic season for those in the position of care in charge of the students, so that would be our coaches. They need to have, we're going to have a player and parent meeting to discuss the plans that they have in place. Parents and students are to receive a copy of the emergency action plan at the start of each season, and the emergency action plan has to be posted on the school's webpage, and we are also required to work with local EMS. So with our emergency action plans and in your handouts, which I probably have them out of order, you'll have a document that looks something like this. You have a blank emergency action plan. Every coach has to fill those out at the beginning of their season. I have a beginning of the year coaches meeting typically before the fall sports season starts, and I ask every coach, regardless of when their season is, I want it filled out right then and there, and they have to submit it to me before the end of that meeting, and then I upload it to the SSAC website. Then I make a laminated copy, which I have, and they post that in a conspicuous area wherever they're practicing or at their event site. And they also have a couple of extra paper copies that they will keep in their emergency binder with them, either when they're traveling or out in the field for practice, wherever they may be, they get that extra copy. So on the emergency action plan, they have a 911 team, there's an AED and CPR team, also a team that is required to give an AED, and then number 4 would be the heat stroke team. Mr. Knotts, which is our athletic trainer, he meets with every team the first week of their practice to go over their emergency action plan. And he doesn't just meet with the players and the coaches that are listed on the emergency action plan. He meets with every player and coach on the team, because even if they're not listed on here, they need to know where the AED is located, because in some instances it may be the coach that goes down. And so the athletes need to be aware of where everything is located. So Mr. Knotts goes over that the first week of the practice, and then anybody that is listed on the emergency action plan, he goes into more specific details on what's required of them to go through their plan. And again, those are all posted in the gym, in the field house, the locker rooms, wherever students can see them and the coaches can see them, so that the way they're reminded. And then also, it's posted on our school website. Mrs. Hott and I talked about posting this, and rather than having a post where it's student names or coaches' names listed specifically on the website, we have a general emergency action plan that's on there that tells what are the steps in case of an emergency situation, where AED is located. Really, if the public were to know that when they're looking at our website, they would be able to find where there's an AED. So again, there's a copy of the emergency action plan, and again, those are posted. We have to submit those to the Western Union Secondary Schools Activity Commission, and it's posted on their website. Then I also submit to our local EMS, which Eddie Cox is for emergency management. I send him the whole file once I have them completed. That way he has them and he distributes them to whoever may need the emergency action plan. So number 2, sudden cardiac arrest protocol. Coaches are to take a sudden cardiac arrest course annually. These courses are all offered through the NFHS NFHS. It's NFHSlearn.com, that they have all of these for free. Once they take the course, they also provide information to athletes and parents about sudden cardiac arrest. The parents are to sign off that they have received this information, and then an informational meeting must be held at the beginning of each sports season to discuss with parents about sudden cardiac arrest. That meeting doesn't have to be, attendance is not required, they just have to offer that, so most coaches will have that during their first week of the season. So more of your handouts, if any of you have an athlete, you will see their physical form. On their physical form, the very bottom right above the signature lines, it says that I have read, reviewed the concussion and sudden cardiac arrest information as available through the school and at the WVSSAC.org. You click on their sports medicine tab. So you're signing off saying that you know where that is and that you have read that. Included in with your physical form, if you were to go to our wellness center at the school, they would have a packet, and there are 3 other sheets with the physical form. The first one is a sudden cardiac awareness, which goes through the signs and symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest. Then you would have a signs and symptoms of a concussion, and And then the last handout that they have is an opioid addiction handout, because opioid addiction is a severe problem in West Virginia, and it's just to let parents know that there is a problem and what they can do to try to help prevent any opioid addiction with their child. Currently, again, all of these are on their student physical, which would require their parent's signature. The student also has to sign off on their physical, so they're saying that they are also aware of the emergency act or the sudden cardiac arrest and the concussion protocols. Right now, we have several locations at the school that have an AED. These are all just listed as our athletic facilities. We have one beside, outside of the high school gym, beside the concession stand. There's also one right outside of the middle school gym. We have one in the softball concession stand. Once we complete the baseball concession stand, there will be one mounted in there. And then we also have 8 portable AEDs. Our golf team signs one out, that way they can take one to North Bend while they're off campus. We also have our cross-country team that will sign one out because they may be running on the rail trail. During track season, we'll have another one that's down at our finish line, because if something happens right at the finish line, instead of running all the way to the field house to get to the locker rooms, we have one right at the finish line. Mr. Dodds, during football games, he carries his with him, and it's right on the sideline. So if there's an emergency, he'll have one of the portable ones that'll be on the sideline.
There are also one inside each in the facility building. They're both locker rooms as you go in. They're right inside both of the doors in the locker rooms.
Our concussion protocols, we felt like this was important information to go over because it's also included in the physical packet. But what parents need to know about a concussion, what are the signs and symptoms of it? Because you always want your athlete just to get right back out there and play, but you need to be aware of what are some of the signs and symptoms of that. Again, the coaches have to take a course annually. This is again through the NFHS Learn. It's free for them to take, but they are required to take that course every year. Schools must have a written concussion protocol, which follow, and they must also follow that protocol. You have a handout from the WVSSAC. That is the concussion protocol that we follow. There are suggested guidelines for management of concussions that have to be provided to parents. So you have another stapled packet. I provide all of this information to the coaches. Actually, this is a folder that I give them with all of that information in them at the beginning of your coaches meeting. They make copies of it to distribute to their teams whenever they have their player and parent meeting. Finally, the SSAC, they can fine schools if you don't follow the proper protocol. Anytime that there's a concussion that is reported, there is a link on their website that our coaches and trainer has to fill out for them to start that concussion protocol. And there's a timeline that has to follow. Some of the questions that we get are who's allowed to evaluate, who's allowed to return them to play. That's our column there on the right. A medical doctor, doctor of osteopathy, doctor of chiropractic, advanced registered nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, a registered certified athletic trainer, and a licensed physical therapist. Those are the only medical professionals that are allowed to diagnose, treat, or evaluate and manage the concussion. And we are fortunate that Mr. Dotz is one of the registered certified athletic trainers. So he is a ATC R, and we have to list that on our athletics website under football to show that he is has the right qualifications. And again, those concussion reports are submitted online. Up at the top says, when in doubt, send them out. And if they feel dizzy, whatever that is, they show those signs and symptoms. It doesn't just have to be in football. It's not the only contact sport that we have. It can happen in any sport that we have. But all of our coaches are trained on how to manage this and who to reach out for that management. So what are we requiring of our coaches? It doesn't matter if they are a paid coach or if they are a non-paid assistant coach or if they're a volunteer. They are required to take the concussion of sports annually. They have to take sudden cardiac arrest annually. There's a heat illness prevention course that they take. CPR, AED, and first aid. our athletics department pays for them to get their CPR certification. And again, it's not just for the paid coaches. I make sure that every coach has all of these certifications, and then they are also required to attend their annual coaches clinics at the beginning of each of their seasons. When they go to their coaches clinics, they hear the same information, pretty much what you're hearing from me. Dr. Daniel is in charge of sports medicine with the SSAC. She'll go over all of this. Wayne Ryan is the main football clinician. He will talk about the same return to play for concussion protocol. The coaches are well aware of what they have to go through, and I believe that I do a really good job of making sure that these coaches are having their certifications before they step on the field or on the court, because I won't let them unless they have all these completed. I have a spreadsheet that I keep and make sure that they have.
Mr. Wells and the middle school as well are required to take those requirements and then turn them into personnel director, and then she keeps a record of them as well to make sure that we are in compliance, and that all the coaches meet the requirements of annually or every 2 years having what is required by us and by the state, that they are certified and that they need to have 2 coach arches.
Yeah. And I know I'm talking more from the high school side. I work with Mrs. Houghton, Mrs. Waldman, with the middle school to make sure that they are following the same procedures as what we are, because it's not just the high school level, it's for all of our sports, and making sure that we're all on the same page, everything is staying consistent, that coaches from little all the way up, they are getting the same information. That way we're all doing what's best for our students and make sure everyone's safe. And that's all I have.
Is there any questions for Mr. Wells? We appreciate what he does, and we appreciate that he brought us that information today. Just felt like it was important that you saw, what that we do provide for our coaches, and that we needed it to become public where our AEDs were. Felt this was a good place to do that. At the beginning of the school year, all of our teachers, service personnel, were given information in all their schools by our county nurses where the AEDs were in their buildings. They were trained in how to use them. We had beginning sessions on that in our schools as well. Felt that cardiac information is vital. So just thought we would share that information.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Next, we have the superintendent report and academic updates.
We're so excited. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Ready, Mr. Clevenger? Mr. Clevenger, I'm going to start with a presentation. If it's okay if I get up to do this first part? Because I'm excited. Then I'll sit back down.
It's okay. It's easier to stand up and be excited.
So we are going to present our data from the 23-24.
Do you have to use a microphone?
No, I'm going to scream. You think I'm not excited? I am so excited. We're going to present our data from 23-24 and kind of give you an overview of our county. And the most excited person in the room other than me is going to be Mr. Hall, because he has been waiting for almost, 6 months to say, how do we compare to other people?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Has he been asking that? Like when all the principals got up here and they said, here's how we're doing and how our kids are doing, he's going, how are we doing compared to other people, right? Well, today's your day.
Awesome.
Today's your day. So we are going to share with you, the state assessment results came back, and they are now unembargoed. So that means we are allowed to give out information, and we won't go to data jail. And so we can share that with you and let you know how we did in Ritchie County. We're going to preface this. We always want to do better, right? We're never, Mr. Clevenger and I looked at this data and we went, gosh, we're pretty good, but we want to be here. We want to do this because every year we want to do better for the kids. We want to do better for our community, but we have to take a few minutes today to celebrate the good things. So that's where we are today. We're going to talk about the top 10 counties in the state of West Virginia. We're going to talk about math and English top 10. We had certain classes that fell in top 10s. Elementary rankings. I've been reading a lot in the paper about where we are after COVID. So I want to talk about where we are after COVID.
Middle school rankings, COVID state versus district in the middle school. Ritchie County High School at a glance. You kind of have to look at the high school a little different because their data isn't only just about test scores. It's kind of part of it. Part of theirs is about kids leaving with certifications, graduation rate. Theirs has a lot more in it. And we're also then going to give you a few closing statements. How's that? Top 10. Guess who's there? Us. So we're excited. Guess where we were last year? Do you remember? We were 8th. Guess where we are this year? 7th.
Yeah.
So guess what? One better, we're climbing, so that's an exciting thing. 1 is Putnam, we're going to say them quieter. 1 is Putnam, 2 is Ohio, 3 is Mon, 4 is Hancock, 5 is Wood, 6 is Jackson, 7th is Ritchie, 8th is Pendleton, 9 is Marion, and 10th is Cabell. Now when we say that, here's what we've looked at. Tell them what we've looked at.
So we have looked at every school grades 3 through 11, ELA and math. So there's a composite score that is provided that shows how we would compare. Each grade level is worth equivalent of 100 points. So if you had 50% proficiency, you get 50 out of 100. Maximum score would be 100% proficient in everything. No one in the state obviously has that. So we look at the way we score versus the way everyone else scores, do a grand summation of all of those numbers, and sort them and see how it sorts out. And excited, like Mr. Potts said, that this year we're able to climb up one spot, and like she said, not where we want to be or where we will be, but where we are right now, and keep moving forward on that is our goal.
But to be in the top 10, if you look around us, of course, we look around us and go, here's Ritchie, where's our surrounding counties? And of course, Woods is surrounding county, right? They're with us, and we're proud of our neighbors, but Jackson's close to us, not an exact surrounding county, but we look around us and think, we're there, right? We're where we want to be. Very proud of our teachers, proud of the efforts of our students, and we feel like the things we're doing something right, and we want to keep doing it. And so, with that said, we're going to the next slide. The next thing we're going to go over is, I told you there were some grade levels that fell in the top 10 in certain subjects. So I want to point those out. In mathematics, so you probably don't remember this, but we do. Last year we had like 1 or 2 grades that were like 1st and 2nd. This year we had more grades, but they were like 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? We had more in them. So in math, 4th grade was 4th.
Last year's 4th grade?
Yes.
Yes.
This year's 5th grade or last year's 5th grade?
Yes, this is all, is that right? That's,
Yeah.
yes. He sometimes has to go, now remember this, we're dealing with data from, and I have to stop and yes.
Okay.
6th grade 6th grade was 4th, 5th grade was 5th, and 7th grade was 10th. So pretty good. So we had 4 grades in the top 10. Pretty good, right?
Very good.
Very good in math. And then in ELA, out of the 55 counties, we had 3rd grade was 5th, 9th grade was 6th, and 4th grade was 7th. And, now I'm going to talk about elementary schools. I'm very proud of our elementary schools. I'm very proud of all of our schools. I don't know if you can tell that.
Very excited.
And the people online are thinking, this lady's crazy. I forgot I'm online, I better settle down.
No,
Okay.
you can be happy.
Creed Collins. When we talk about math, so what we did on this slide is we looked at last year versus this year proficiency. Last year at Creed Collins in math, they were 57% proficient. This year, they were 57% proficient. They stayed the same. In ELA, last year they were 40% proficient, and this year they were 55% proficient. Good, big growth. Overall last year, when we talk about ranking, let's talk about ranking. Where was Smithville last year? They were 1, right? Remember? So that's the ranking we're talking about. Last year, Creed Collins was 137 out of 386. This year they're 108. They've improved 29 spots. Pretty good, right?
Yep.
Nice jump, right? So I think that's excellent for Creed, and what's that show? Growth. improvements and at Harrisville Elementary. In math last year, 36% proficient. 53% proficient this year. Is that growth? That's growth. 44 proficient last year, 51 this year. Overall ranking last year, 233. This year, 137. What's their improvement? 96 spots. Is that growth? That's growth. And I told them, I said, when you're making change and you're changing cultures and you're kind of trying to get everybody going in the same direction, this is when you're starting to feel it. As you've made changes at your school and you're starting to see the data making a shift and you're getting people going in the same direction and you're starting to see your data making a change, the numbers start doing this. And I think Creed and Harrisville, this year, their data shows it. So, and now we're going to guess where? Smithville. Guess where? Number one. But I gotta show you, cause I have to brag on them. Look at their proficiency. Last year, they were 90% math. This year, what are they in math? 96. So even though they're number one, what did they do? They improved. And in ELA, they're 81, they stayed the same. It's hard to improve when you're number one, but they show growth. So I think that, to me, you had to point that out. And then their little picture, dare to be excellent. And I think that you have to once again bring Smithville Elementary in here and give them their banner, because they deserve that, and they once again had a great year. One of the things we've been able to do, and we've talked about this, the model that we have at Smithville is that using the 95% group, and it's one of these days we're going to come in and show you that model. Jacob and I have talked about it, and we use that model at the other two elementary schools, and we are slowly putting a very similar model in at the middle school. And it has had an impact, and it makes a change. It has made a change, and it has impacted the overall core in those schools. And
It's a lot of hard work.
it's a lot of hard work. And Casey's got them all bought in. And I told him the other day at the principal, they're all rowing in the same direction. When you watch, I'm a big Olympics person. You guys watch the Olympics? You know those little boats and everybody was in and the person's yelling, they're all paddling in the same direction. They're all paddling in the same direction. Kids, the school, they're all going in the same direction, and that's how you get good. And I think as a school system, we've been fortunate. We're getting there. And I think that's what makes a difference. Your leadership here has made a difference. You trust that they're doing good things, and supporting them to give them the staff they need, the buses they need, the things that we need to do our jobs. I think that's powerful. So thank you for the schools, and you're seeing the change. Next.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I don't know if you guys have seen around the news, Mrs. Houghton and I had a discussion today, and we have both seen, particularly from the state level, there's a huge emphasis on the rebound and bounce back from academic performance after COVID. So everyone in this room knows that COVID had a huge impact on education across not only West Virginia, but America and the world for that matter. So we've got a little bit of data here to show kind of where we were after COVID and where we went versus the state and where the state has gone. So starting with third grade, you can see that after COVID, we came back very strong. So our growth on this is going to be a little bit less than the state rate of growth. But again, like some of the schools like Smithville or Creed in one of the areas, when you're performing high, that growth comes slower at a less rapid pace than if you're performing lower. So the state came back at 39%, and we're able to get to 52%.
So we're blue, and the state's yellow. You see that? Okay.
Yeah, so we came back at 56, which was higher currently than the state got even now, right? So we came back at a higher point than the state has been able to get to in the past 3 years combined. We have since grown to 63%, which stays ahead of the state in third grade mathematics. Fourth grade, we came back at 44. You can see here where the state came back at 34. The state has had 17% growth, which is huge growth, but we have had, even though coming back 10% higher, have had 22% growth since returning from COVID. Just for context, a typical growth goal for a year would be 2 to 3%, right? So we're averaging over 5% since returning from COVID, which is really good, right? Our goal secretly is 5%. You're happy with 2 to 3, but anytime you can get 5% or more growth, that's huge. You saw at some of the elementary schools, they had 17, 15, 20% growth in a school year. Anytime you can get that, that is really good.
When you see our strategic plan, we normally set it at
3%.
3%.
That's a good.
But you're hoping for more than that, but you set it at
Yes.
because that's typical.
So ELA, you can see, we came back a little bit above the state as well in ELA for third grade. And since then, I've had 19% growth, while the state has had 12% growth. So over that course, you can see, again, averaging nearly 5% growth per year. You'll see slight dips in some of these as we go through, and we'll explain, particularly on the next one here, you'll see that this fourth grade for us and for the state both dipped dramatically. These kids are the ones who spent COVID at home for kindergarten and first grade. So ELA-wise, they were really impacted by COVID because all of those foundational literacy skills were greatly impacted due to the students not being with us. Again, shows the impact that we can have on kids when kids are here. And again, you can see with us, the state has a little bit higher growth. But again, we were 13% higher to start, so that growth again is slower when you're performing at a higher level. So that is kind of how we have impacted or performed following COVID at the elementary school level.
Can you read the 2024 blue numbers, because my eyes are having issues?
Yeah, so 2024 blue, so we were at 58% in third grade and 56% in fourth grade, where the state was 46% in both. So
Reading though, I just couldn't read the blue.
yeah, around, there's a glare, I think, around 12% higher than the state average there for us. So, which is where we like to be and keep pushing that towards, you get to the 58 and then you want 60 and then you want 65 and then you want 70 and
Just keep wanting more.
it just keeps going like that. Yeah. So, are you ready for middle school?
You guys have any questions? We just felt that this was valuable information because what we keep reading in the newspaper and at other board meetings and questions even from the state board is questions about where we are and how we're bouncing back from COVID. And it is a good question because we do have pockets of how kids are performing, and we still are feeling that in some areas. And we know it's a concern of parents and our concern as well. Okay. Ritchie County Middle School. In 2023, they were 36% proficient in math. In 2024, they were 42% proficient. So they came up in math. In ELA, they were 23% proficient. In 2023, they were 50% proficient in ELA. And in 2024, they did fall to 44% proficient in ELA. Their overall ranking, and we compared them to schools of their like. We compared them to middle schools that were 5-8 middle schools. So there are 76 of those in the state of West Virginia. They ranked high both years. They were 7th last year out of 76. This year they're 12th out of 76. So they still rank high, but they did fall in ELA.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And one of the things you'll see here in a second, and I showed on the previous slide, is there was a group that in 2023 was lower. Those kids that were really impacted by COVID. Those kids have since rolled over to the middle school. So now there's a grade, 5th grade, and you'll see on the next slide, or 2 slides from now, the 5th grade ELA was really impacted by that. That's why we're putting in some new programs and things to try to help those kids get caught back up where we would like to see them. But like Mrs. Hawk said, we know where our pockets are and things that we need to do. And that's one of the areas that we have found and are addressing currently this year at the middle school with some programs that we're putting in. So with that, it will take us into, like we did before with COVID, and how the middle school impacted. Middle school math, you'll see, had a much larger impact. You'll honestly see.
So why do you think it would have a much larger impact in middle school math? Because of the concepts, right? Parents,
Big jump.
Big jump.
And hard for parents at home to do. Like, if I was at home and I had a kid in 1st grade, I could do that. Like, if I had a kid in 7th or 8th grade, those concepts are more difficult. So you'll see in our area particularly, we came back a lot of times lower than the state after COVID, which was kind of interesting to see. So again, hard for those concepts to be taught at home. But even though coming back lower, so for fifth grade, for example, we came back at 27%, and the state came back at 29. Since returning to school, we're at 57%, the state is at 39. So again, shows the impact of our teachers in the classrooms and the work that they do. I can't find a better example probably anywhere to show what are the value of our teachers, right? COVID was very hard, harder maybe on us even than other areas surrounding us or across the state, but since coming back have bounced back at a much higher rate. Sixth grade, again, coming back 4% lower than the state. We were at 17, the state was at 21. Since then, we've gotten to 45, while the state has gotten to 27. So again, you're seeing that 18-20% growth over a 4-year time span, which again, like I said, is around 5% per year, which is where we would like to be in those areas. Same thing with 7th grade, coming back lower than the state at 24, and getting to 42, where the state's gotten to 31. And then another pocket where we have seen some things that we want to try to address is our 8th grade, and they came back at 26, but have only gotten to 29. See an increase here of 37, but this one's not where we want it to be, and I put in some programs to address the 5th grade ELA, the 8th grade mathematics, and just to make sure that by the time our kids are getting to 8th grade, that we can keep that 45, 42, and that 45 to 40% range for our 8th grade as well.
So that population are now high school freshmen?
This will be the population of high school freshmen, which we'll talk about in a second, of programs that we put in at the high school, knowing what's coming in, and try to address that over the course of time before they take the SAT in 11th grade as well. Yeah, absolutely. So that was middle school math. Middle school ELA, you can kind of see the same progress, coming in lower than the state often in several of the areas, but then growing faster than the state again. So we came back at 31 and are now at 38 in 5th grade. This one we know is not where we want it to be. So you can see we were 31 to 47 to 47 and then dropping to 38. So that one we'd like to see at 50 or higher, right? To kind of progress the way that others have progressed. Again, in 6th grade, they were at 38 up to 49. At one point, we're to 55. This was when they were, I think, 0.2% from being first in the state, right? So an extremely high year there. And then the rest have come from 39 to 35 to 47, while the state's kind of hovering flatline around 40 to 41%. So again, we know our areas, we know where we want to be, where we can be, and trying to put in programs to implement to make sure that we were able to get all that we can get, and to do the best for our students, because that's what they deserve. Anything else on
Any
this?
questions? Ritchie County High School. As I said when we started, it's about a lot there. And as an old high school principal, it's about a lot there. So I'm gonna give you some data. Our ELA is above state average, our math is slightly below. Promise eligible right now out of our senior class, we have 83 seniors right now, 13 are eligible for promise. That's a high number to start the school year out. That means as of last spring or this summer, they've already gotten the numbers that they need to be eligible to receive the promise. We normally, that's about, I'm gonna say 16, 17%, 16%. We normally average about 20 to 25% of the class, so we're on track to have about that many get the promise scholarship. CTE participants, you know we have a high number of participants that that end up with certifications from MOVTI. We have 52 that go to AM MOVTI, which is 10th and 11th graders. We have 55 that do PM students, which are 12th graders. We have 107 students that go to MOVTI during the day. That's a lot. Our graduation rate was 97%. Good?
Really high.
It's pretty high.
Really high graduation rate.
So I want you to know there are good things happening at Ritchie County High School. Chris is working on calculating other things for us as well to bring you as we go. We will be getting our ESSA scorecard soon. I think they come out probably October, and that will give us like our college prep and all that kind of stuff, and our consortiums and all of our other information about the high school. But those were some things we wanted to point out.
And before we mentioned, like Dr. Jackson mentioned earlier about, you had made a good point about the 8th graders going into 9th grade, right? So one of the things we're doing this year at the high school is implementing Khan Academy for grades 9 through 12. So we have not had traditionally a program that we focused on the high school. We've always been focused more on elementary, middle, building that up, but we have kids coming through now that we're ready to start pushing that all the way through. So this group, all the kids will have it this year, but the ninth graders will be the first group to see that process all the way through from 9th to 11th grade. There will be mastery courses that they take in Algebra 1 in the 9th grade, ELA, and then in Geometry and Algebra 2 as well, and then a digital SAT preparatory program that the juniors will do this year as well. So we're hoping to see that process through and hoping for results there, because we know, based on what we have gotten and based on what we have coming in, that something, we had to support that more to be able to get to where we wanted to be at the high school level. So that's something that we've kind of saw, but weren't ready to implement until we made sure we had the elementary and middle school squared away, which we kind of have now and ready to start moving that one toward the high school.
It's a good solid program that most of us who would try and teach our kids at home would use anyway.
Yeah.
If we knew what we were.
And
doing
several of the
and
teachers,
consistent.
several of the teachers, and like you said, families already use it. What our process will do is allow us to, we have a partnership with them now that will allow us to gather data from what's actually happening. So I could use it in my classroom, Ms. Todd could use it in hers, but no one really knew what was happening outside of that. Now the administration can see it, we can see it from a district level to see trends and data in that, just to help us better form instruction and make adjustments as we need to.
We're also looking at running, at least for our 11th graders, a boot camp to where we actually take our 11th graders to a location and teach them how the program itself works, how the questions are set up, and do a day training with them prior to them taking the SAT, so that they have a better understanding of the actual format of the testing.
So
And use a lot more in-class type questions, and we brought a company in to work with our staff in that as well.
general population, not talking about honors students, just
Yeah.
general population of students in 8th grade, they would take what math?
General math in 8th grade, just 8th grade math.
What is general math in 9th grade? Is that
Algebra 1.
Algebra 1?
And then 10th grade is geometry, and 11th grade is algebra 2.
But based on
Block scheduling.
based on some of their abilities, some kids in 9th grade will take almost like it's not pre-algebra, but it's a
Algebra support.
algebra support in the fall. They'll take algebra all year. They'll take an algebra support and an algebra class.
So the class that's coming in with the lower math scores will have an additional support?
More
like
sections of algebra support.
Co-requisite lab source?
Yes, they will take more, and within that we'll have more Khan Academy, more support kind of things within it.
So some of the block classes can be year-long?
Yes, they will be.
And it'll be 2 courses, so traditionally a student would come in and take Algebra 1. This, I don't know how many sections off the top of my head, but there are multiple of algebra support, so they would take Algebra support in the fall until December, and then roll that over into Algebra 1. So just kind of a pre-algebra to say, to make sure that they're ready for the actual content of Algebra 1.
It's beneficial to be able to have it year-long for students who have any deficiency in skills, because
Yes.
the break allows one to forget a few things. Not summer break, I'm talking about whole semester break, yeah. Thank you.
So, as you all know, I'm gonna talk about myself. There are so many things that impact student achievement. There's so many things that impact our lives. Think about your day today. I'm gonna tell you about my day today. I had lunch at 3 o'clock. That was my day. It impacted my day because I had lunch at 3 o'clock. Think about our students. Think about things in their lives that impact their lives. Some of them, it could be home life. It could be one of their friends is mad at them. It could be that they're having a great day. It could be that that they broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be anything. It could just be that they're 12. It could be just anything. Life is tough for kids today. Social media, things impact children. I read an article the other day about 354 things that impact learning for children. 354 things that have an impact on learning, okay? Our job as educators is to figure out how to whittle away minimize those things that impact learning, and figure out how to teach children and make sure that those impacts are there, but let's look at it the other way. Are there positive? Of those 350, are some of them positive impacts? What's positive? A good teacher. Is that positive? Good curriculum. Is that positive? Let's talk about positive things. Our job as educators are to take those 350 things and you having a bad day? You hungry? Let's feed you. How do we change education? We impact it. And we have to figure out how to impact education to make you a better learner. And that's what we as a system have to do to make change in education. And so what we wanted to do today is to show you, with your support, our county is being able to impact student learning. Do you know how I know that? We have data to show you. We're impacting learning, we're minimizing the negative so that we have positive outcomes for student learning. Okay? And so what we have found, the greatest indicator of student success is collective teacher buy-in. The power to produce the desired results. A shared belief by a group of teachers in a particular educational environment that they have the skill to positively impact student outcomes. To me, to our system, what makes the difference? We all have the same goal and believe we can. That's how we change it, guys. We're all in that boat and we're paddling in the same direction. How do we change it? Because we go to school every day and we're getting rid of the things that negatively impact children. Thank you for our communities and schools. Why? They help provide our kids clothes. They help provide them food. They're taking away the negative impacts that negatively impact our children to keep them from learning, right?
Right.
Right. Our books, our curriculum, our technology.
Thank you to the voters for passing the levy.
Right. Thank you for the voters for passing the levy.
Yes.
Right? Thank you to our nurses. Thank you for our techs. Thank you for our teachers. Because that's how we're able to do what we do. And I think that's what the message that we gave to our principals when they were here is that's what makes a difference in our system. Is we figured out and we're getting better at it. We're not there yet, or we wouldn't be 7.
We should be very thankful for being 7.
We'd be, but this is, to me, that's the one. That's what impacts, is that when you can get people going in the same direction. And those of you that work in businesses, you know that. You're in an office. You got the one guy paddling in the other direction that can kill your department, right? And so that changes education. So we appreciate you guys all. We want you to know that we're thankful for you. We're thankful for the voters. We're thankful for our teachers. And we hope to continue to change education and keep it moving in the right direction. But when you leave here, tell people, what number are we? There, that's our presentation.
Well, thank you. That was very good, and all you said was very good. And I agree with all that. And I think one reason too is that we're a caring county. I mean, we're small enough to care. We all our employees care, and
Oh, absolutely.
And the morale's good now, and the negatives in the, not like you said, you don't want to promote the negative. You want to promote the positive. And I think that plays into our students doing so well and our employees doing such an excellent job. And I do think it's great where we are. I do know that I just wish the general public could hear all this.
Well, they're probably listening to us.
Oh, they can hear me. I forget. Yeah. I don't know how many people know that, but you know, a lot of times people are concerned where we stand and what we do and everything. And just relation to the counties surround us. I know Wood County is a little bit above us, but compared to all our other neighbors, we're way ahead of them. Some of them tremendously ahead of them. So if people's wanting to, look at counties, how they're doing, they need to look at us. So.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love what you presented, and it's a great thing because it starts at kindergarten. And that kindergarten student gets those great teachers and administrators and everything clear up through when they graduate. newspapers are great, but sometimes that's not the best way to reach everyone. And if we can maybe even present that, I know listening to it on YouTube, probably not a lot of people want to listen to it, to be honest. But having,
Who made that really great video last year? Was that Lynn?
Ada Chin.
Ada. Did she
So
graduate?
that type of info is awesome, and it's also advertising for us because there's a lot of people that, when COVID hit, decided to homeschool. And some people would see that data and say, you know what, my kid would be a lot better off, my life would be easier if I just sent them to Ritchie County Schools. They realize, that we're doing that well, so good job.
I have just a couple more things,
Okay.
Jacob, before I turn it over to you.
I'll pause.
Also on my list tonight, I wanted to remind you all that here in this office on August 31st at 1 o'clock, that the adult ed will have their high school equivalent recognition ceremony. And that we will have 7 students recognized that evening or that afternoon. And if you would like to come out, I may have received your invitation. Also, I would like to welcome our new elementary PRO. Nick Mosser will be joining our staff. We're excited to see him. If you need to see a picture of him, his first day of work, I got my picture taken with him, because he's one of mine.
Tori, he's one of mine also.
So I have my picture taken with him.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
In your stack in front of you, I have provided you something that I would like you to take a few minutes to look at. And this is just informative mainly because, again, Mr. Hall has joined us since this was completed many years back. It is the CEFP. We have to do an annual update in October. We start looking at it, and Carrie, if you have anything you want to add, please do at this point. I've added a couple of things to this for you to look at. This is just our annual update form, which is a summary of the CEFP. What this is our projects that we have listed that we would want to spend our money on to update things in the county as far as facilities. And we've listed on here priorities 1, and then I have gone in here and highlighted in red anything that's been completed throughout the years, and you will look at yes. Anything that's been completed, then I put it in red, and then I've put out the year that it's completed in red, and left anything that's not in red, that's things that could still be done. And so I just wanted you to look over that. And then if you look at the very back sheet, Mr. Brown had listed almost like a mastery construction funding plan originally for like a 4-year plan, but then this kind of got slowed down because the big project at the facilities at the high school took longer, the funding was different, and so we didn't continue with it because he ended up leaving and we kind of paused it. But I'm putting this back out there because if we choose to do a needs project, it's due September 13th, which is a project where we can ask for funding to help us support a project to finish one of these projects. And so I'm just throwing it out there to you to let you know I'm going to start exploring what funding is available to us. I've not done a needs project, so I'm just letting you know I'm going to just explore what our possibilities are and then come back to you at the next meeting and say, here's what our possibilities are. And so I'm just informing you today, if that's okay with you, I would like to be able to do that and come back with information. And we have budgeted money in some areas, so we do have some money to put up against some of these projects if we choose to move forward. I have met with our architect, and we do know that none of these numbers are accurate anymore, that these numbers were done in 2018 at least, or 2017. He's saying they're at least 40% off at least, maybe even more than that, correct? Mrs. Rice? Ms. Rice, and so he would have to come in and we would have to look at the numbers before we would move forward. But I just thought we needed to throw this out, if nothing else, before we submit this, for our annual update anyway, so.
Right.
I wanted to share that with you all. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, but if you look at priority number one, the budgeted cost for that, which of course would be much more now, would be too much for a major improvement project, because those are closer to a $1 million range, so we would, as you look at that, you know, I have to go something more like three that wouldn't have increased astronomically from construction costs.
So that's what I would start looking at, is what we can afford to do, what, but I just wanted to let you look at it, start thinking about it, I'll start looking at it, and then we may say, oh, we can't do a needs project this time, but maybe we could do something in the spring, and
No
then.
harm in asking, not that they will necessarily get it, but there's no harm in
So
asking.
there we are.
Worst thing they could say, the worst thing they could say is no.
And I also wanted to just kind of throw it out there and educate Jason as well, because he was not here and hasn't seen this information, and I just thought we would start talking about it. Is that fair? Okay. And so, that's all I had this evening.
Great, I wanted to add one more thing in regards to the presentation on the accountability data. So, as a board, I think you should also remember that we strategically several years ago started setting goals for the superintendent in regards to curriculum and making sure that there were less options for, what would be the word, additives is not the word. Less options for like an iReady, what is that
Oh,
called?
yeah, just condensing our supplemental programs.
Yes, condensing our supplemental materials so that more people were using the same ones and
Streamlined.
that the students could become more familiar and continue to use them over time. So when you do hear those complaints in the community about, I've been using iReady for so many years, yes, for a purpose.
Yes.
And while you may have been using it for that many years, you can eventually see results from it. And if you switch programs every year, it's not as fruitful. And so I think that was a good decision several years ago, and I still think it's a good decision for those of you who may be here a long past the time that some of the rest of us are. Just remember that you can help set a tone in that. And it's actually one of the messages that I shared at the new board member training that I had an opportunity to go to, and let board members know that they do have an opportunity to have input when they help set goals with the superintendent for the county. So, that's all. So next, we have director reports, and Jacob Clevenger, you go first.
So I am here this evening to present about everyone's favorite topic, attendance. It seems like we never have any straight answers, and finally I feel like at a point where we do. So I want to take some time and get this out there. Mr. Hall actually made a good point earlier about saying getting things out there in a creative way about our test scores and the positive things that we are doing. Part of what I want to speak about are several districts around us are kind of doing those types of things in regards to attendance. Some of the information that is out there, even from state legislators, isn't accurate or based on the state attendance policies. So what we have checked, double checked, triple checked to make sure that we have everything the way that it needs to be. I'm going to present the changes that we have as well as changes that have come from the state. And again, just note that just because one county says it's one way and one county says it's another, like we said, we have kind of triple checked this to make sure we're as in line with the state policy as we can be at this time. So things I'm going to talk about are just a few definitions. Regular school attendance, chronic absenteeism, excused versus unexcused absences, absence types. Excited this year we're going to have digital excuses. We have not had those in the past. That'll be a major benefit for our parents and our families. And then our system of support plan, and then a district process for how we handle attendance. The first kind of definition that is a new definition, we've spoken about this briefly, is regular attendance. Regular attendance, I think some before may have referred to it as faithful attendance. That's more common terminology sometimes. But the state has defined this as attending 95% of instructional school days, which would equate to 10 or less days per year. If you kind of see down here, we have this slogan that we're going to start branding and campaigning, and I'll talk about that during our system of support plan, but a 10 to win. So that 10 is kind of emphasized there, meaning that students need to miss 10 or less days per year to fall within this goal. Students who fall within this have the highest likelihood of academic success, as well as building healthy habits for work and for their futures as well. Studies show that 64% of students who attend school, 95% or more of instructional days by the time they're in the 3rd grade or on grade level, right? So 64%, that's a goal that we would like. While 17% of students who do not meet this mark are on grade level by the time they reach 3rd grade. So again, like we showed with COVID and the impact that our teachers have, our best tool in Ritchie County is our people and our curriculum, right? So making sure that those students are in there. I do not know which one you said earlier about kindergarten students. We're putting a huge emphasis this year on kindergarten students, making sure that those kids build healthy habits with attendance from the time that they walk into the school building. Oftentimes kindergarten students have the lowest attendance rates across the state and the nation, and that's something that we would like to kind of combat and get ahead of here. The other definition, which you guys have heard a lot about over the years, but just as a reminder, is chronic absenteeism, and that is missing more than 10% of instructional days. Again, the regular was 10 days, this is 10% of days, which would equate to around 18 days per school year. So if a student misses 18 or more days, they're deemed chronically absent, and that is an accountability data point that we have with our SS scorecard when we get that in October. There are only 2 allowable deductions for that, so if this is any absence for any reason whatsoever. The only time it is not counted against a student is if there is a failure for a bus to run, so flood, tree across the road, road washes out, slips out, anything of that nature, a student cannot get to school, or if a student is suspended from school. Anything else, doctor's appointment, any other reasonable explanation counts against their chronic absenteeism rate. So this is, I'm going to take a little bit of time here. These are the major changes that we had, and then I'm going to, you'll see a few things here that I've striped and talked about. So on the left-hand column, you have excused absences. On the right-hand column, unexcused absences. So the things right now that are excused are medical appointments. So if a student has anything from a therapy appointment, a dentist appointment, a regular doctor's appointment, they get a note from the physician, from the dentist, from their provider, they bring it back to school, excused absence, no questions asked. Personal injury or illness of the student, you see that says parent note, there's an asterisk, you'll see on the next slide why that is. Personal injury or illness of the student's parent or guardian. So someone in the home has an illness or injury that prevents that student from coming to school. Again, you'll see parent note, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. A death in the family, a judicial obligation, religious observation, military requirements, and then you'll see straight out at the bottom, leave of educational value. So in the past, we've had leave of educational value as an option. The state of West Virginia has had leave of educational value as an option that currently no longer exists. So if I were to take my children, they were a little bit older, I would take them to see the Grand Canyon. While educational, if I came back and wrote a note about that, the school can no longer accept that as a reason for an absence, or excuse, right? So they are absent, it goes under an unexcused absence category, and then we'll talk about kind of what that process looks like in a few slides.
Is that a statewide decision?
Yeah, that comes down from state legislators, so we no longer have the ability to provide that. There are certain things in there like college visits and things that are set up through the school that of course would count because that's a school-based function. Anything that other than that though, like in the past, like I said, where a parent could write that and make a decision for their family, that no longer exists from the state level. The state has had huge problems with attendance over the course of the past, since COVID really, and probably before that. So they're trying to really show an emphasis of the importance of students being in the classroom, right? So is it an educational experience? Do we all agree upon that? Absolutely, right? But some of the data shows that those students missing school really has an impact on their learning over the course of time, which is what the state is trying to address, and which our policy will align and has to align with what they align with. Unexcused absences, again, any absence that is not specifically listed in the column on the left is an unexcused absence. So as we go on to the next slide, we'll show what those will look like. We now have full day, half day, and quarter day absences. So we always say, what is the time of this or what is the time of that? Every one of those will be posted at the school, because every school starts and ends at a different time. but a full day is missing 80% or more of the school day. A half day is 40 to 59, and a quarter day is 20 to 39. So if a student would sign in and miss 15% of the school day because they had an appointment first thing in the morning and hurry back, they would not be counted against them. Important to know that these absences can accumulate upon each other. So if you get 4 quarters as a whole, 2 halves as a whole, right? The one thing that is in red and underlined and bolded and all the crazy stuff is something that there's a lot of misinformation floating around the state of West Virginia about, and that is the amount of notes that parents and guardians can write. So there is no amount of notes that a parent and guardian can write, but it equates to 10 days. So I can do 40 quarters or 20 halves or whatever it is, but it equates to 10 days. A lot of places, and even legislators have posted TikToks or Facebook Reels or whatever social media trend that there is that says 10 notes per year, and that is not true. So if my child missed 3 days and I write a note, I don't get 10 more of those, I get 7 more days. If that makes sense, right? So again, kind of aligning that is easy to remember because those 10 days also align with how many days they recommend you miss during the school year. Again, that's not doctor's notes or anything of that nature. Those are simply parent or guardian notes. And if we go back to the last slide, you will notice that this says has to be personal injury or illness, right? So if I write a note and says, my little boy's name is Leo, if Leo has to get a haircut on Tuesday and he misses half a day, and I write a note to the secretary, we'll say thank you for your note, your consideration, but that absence is unexcused, right? Only personal injury or illness was what that parent note will cover. So any other type of parent note will not be counted as an excused absence. And that has not really been the case in the past. It was, my kid missed school, here's a note. My kid woke up later, my kid did this or that. The only thing now that is covered is if your child was injured or ill. And again, these are all changes that have come through state legislation that we've had to kind of align our policy with.
Is the quarter day, has that always been in
That
effect?
that is new
That's
through the
what I
state
thought,
policy,
okay.
yeah. So that's in effect now that the state has passed their policy. The quarter day has not been that before, it was full or half. So honestly, I think that this may help some families, because before you kind of showed up and it was a half day, right? Well, now you can show up and it's a quarter day, particularly with kids who have appointments or things of that nature. So getting those scheduled first thing in the morning, last thing, kind of rotating them back and forth so you're not always missing the same thing. We'll see how that shakes out statewide, but I don't think they're really still sure on how that will or won't impact student attendance. Again, noting that all of those excuses must be submitted within 72 hours of the student's return to school. All of our students will be receiving their the print shop now. Some final tweaks going on with these. A calendar that has all of the, I know it's small, but all of the days are listed of when we won't be in school. So for scheduling appointments and things of that nature, trying to get that information out to families as early as possible. You will also notice a QR code here that families can scan, and I'll show you an example of that on the next page. But we will now have digital excuses available for them. So needing to send in a note, rushing around to find paper, and writing on a napkin as your kid's running out the door, that kind of stuff is on the past, and I'll show you how that process will work. One of the best parts of this, I think, a lot of times families don't realize how much school their kid misses. So when their kids miss, they'll be able to put that on their fridge or somewhere in their home and mark off and say, oh man, I didn't realize that we missed. And that should be helpful, and a lot of districts around the state are implementing this process this year. As far as excuses go, again, a QR code that the families can scan with their phone, with their iPad, anything that they may need. And I will quickly click on and show you what it will look like. I know several of you will be impacted by this, and the internet will be slow probably. I'll let that load in the background and then come back to it. It'll work again. So you'll see the student's name. ID number is optional. It's helpful for the schools, but you don't have to have it. A lot of families may not know that, but it helps in case two students with the same name, which we have a few of throughout the county. The date they were absent, will there be additional dates, and you'll see here in the middle where it says illness verified by parent or guardian. There's 10 of those per year. You can click that. If it's something where there's a picture, then they'll have to email that to the secretary. Each school's form has a secretary's email listed on there, so you can email the secretary the picture of the doctor's note or whatever it may be. And then the parent guardian's name, email, they show that they aren't the parent or guardian, and then basically saying this signature is the same as if you move real paper. and that will go straight to the secretary's email. The secretary will be able to file that and code it just like they always have in the past. So we're hoping that that is mainly doing that as a convenience for the parents that we have in our schools. I'm not going to be starting for this. All right. The system of support plan, again, something that we're required to have through the state legislature. So ours, tier 1, we're going to campaign, which is like the flyers and things that we're sending out, the magnets, to educate our families and engage them and engage our community and have conversations with our board members, with any audience that we have. When we had our open houses, all of the elementary schools and middle school provided this information to their families as well. So these are systems and support we're providing for every student in Ritchie County Schools. The tier 2 students who are kind of slipping through those cracks a little bit, we're going to identify who they are, support them, and connect them with the appropriate resources, whether that be shelter, whether that be clothing, food, any resources within our community. And then tier 3, we will collaborate and coordinate with maybe the judicial system or whoever else we need to for those extreme circumstances. And then finally, just kind of the process for the unexcused days. We talked earlier about like educational leave being an unexcused day. Typically 3 days unexcused, the principal of the school will call the communities and schools member, someone will call. So when they call, like, yeah, we had 3 unexcused days, but we went to the Grand Canyon, like I said. They'll note that, they'll make a note of that, and if the absences do not continue to be a problem, that will sort itself out. Schools hold an in-person meeting after 5 days, so if there's 5 unexcused days, the school will call a meeting, the parent will come in with the student, have a meeting with the school. If it gets to 10 unexcused days, depending on the situation, it could be referred to magistrate court, and that would be the parent and the student going to magistrate court to try to resolve that issue that was not able to be resolved at the school. With that being said, that should cover it all. Are there any questions regarding student attendance?
I do have one.
Okay.
So, like, the 10 days, is that a state or is that our individual, like, where it
For the
turns over to the magistrate?
state.
Okay.
Everything we presented there is state.
Yeah, so we've just taken what they had and aligned, and that's been in our policy forever. That part's not new, but just as a reminder of how that works. But all the other changes are direct correlation to what the state has provided us and the changes that legislation has made.
I know that we have done that for, Mr. Hoopley and that, so. I just know other counties that are missing a lot of days, and I don't know how.
Yeah, and it's a.
They're not getting letters.
Yeah, and it's a case by, like, our people are really good, particularly our communities and schools, about making sure that they're contacting families that are missing and trying to find out, ascertain reasons why. And then, of course, the 10 days is a case-by-case basis. If a kid had an extenuating circumstance or something of that nature, then that obviously is different than people who just miss.
We also gave you a paper in front of you. We've had kind of an uprising, you can see it in the paper, of COVID, and we've heard kids say, I got COVID. Basically, right now, this came out in March, but what we have been told is that COVID has now been reclassified as a respiratory virus. Stay home if you have a fever. When your fever's over, you're allowed to come back to school when you start feeling better. There is no restriction as far as the number of days you have to stay out, and I just thought I would give you that information. This was provided to us, and this is still the last thing that was on the state website. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, in case you guys have questions.
Amazing how science changes.
Just thought I'd share that with you.
Isn't that amazing? Oh.
Carrie Rice. There's a little spirit driving it down.
I have several things to tell you guys. First, I just wanted you to know that by August 1st, our crisis response plans were due to the state, the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Homeland Security via a new online platform that they had introduced back in May. Ours were actually submitted in June, and all 5 school plans were reviewed and approved not only by the department but also by Homeland Security. And that included our updated maps. Chris was talking about AEDs. We actually included the AEDs on our school maps so that first responders will have access to those as well. We have a new 66 passenger bus that was received last week and put on the road last Friday.
Who
The
got
Rockland
that one?
style.
Who got that one?
John Levens.
What's the number?
2502.
2502.
2502.
Well, I sent you a picture, you guys said.
Yeah.
You pay attention.
From my observations, we've made changes to our menu, which has increased our school lunch participation at our high school and middle school. And at the September 23rd, 2024 meeting, I'll have data to discuss interventions that we have implemented and review student participation in the first 6 weeks.
I've heard a lot of positive comments about the middle school, high school this year,
Thank you.
food wise.
Thank you.
Yep. Great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And now for the tough stuff, I suppose. I'm just gonna go school by school just to give you all an idea of, summertime, with the end of school and kids not being in the building is my super busy time. I'm like, from start to finish, just wicked fast, trying to get through everything to make sure that our schools are healthy and safe for when our kids come back and our teachers come back. So from the end of May into, oh my gosh, well, we've got something going on this week. At Creek Collins, we did exterior plumbing and pipe replacement and an additional 4-inch stack vent added to the west corner of the building. We have new electrical line being installed to the brick building and new electrical panel being fabricated and customized for the school, which will serve approximately 35% of that building. We also replaced 2 rooftop HVAC units and replaced the compressor and evaporator coil units for the cafeteria and walk-in cooler. At Harrisville, we had the demolition of the 2 exterior buildings that were completed. The interior girls' bathroom floor was removed and replaced, while both main bathrooms were painted and refreshed. Smithville Elementary received a playground upgrade courtesy of EQT, which includes the installation of a concrete pad that can be used as an outdoor playground, an outdoor classroom. We've also painted the gymnasium and the main office areas, so all of that main office area has been refreshed as well. At the middle school, technology classroom has received new flooring, the removal of water fountains in the gymnasium, and the replacement of a new water fountain near Mr. Vinegar's office. But the gym floor underneath that, where it had dripped a little bit, those floors are going to actually be replaced tomorrow in that little section, and then also sanded on where it was on the opposite one, and buffed out and repaired so that it matches and is repaired. They're starting that tomorrow. And then the HVAC controls upgrade from Mason Berry, those were finished at the middle school and high school. At Ritchie County High School, the stage floor is going to be sanded and refinished on August 30th to give it a couple of days for the fumes to die down and for the wax and the finish to cure while the kids are not in school for those 3 days. We are also installing, we've ordered 3 12,000 lumen solar lights with 15-foot posts, and they are going to be on the back loop. We've actually measured those out and marked where we want them. The delivery is approximately 4 to 6 weeks, and were ordered last week. They're dusk to dawn, motion censored, and can be placed onto timers when we have events in that area so that we have higher traffic, and it'll light up really well. All schools, we will be receiving new desks and chairs for grades 1 through 4. We actually got our first shipment of those at Smithville last Friday. We're also replacing some in grades 5 through 12 in designated areas. We're in the process of sorting them into 3 separate categories: keep them and move them to another classroom at the originating school or storage, move them to another county site, or reparable items that will be disposed of properly. I have a step-by-step for each principal as well as the custodians in their building and maintenance so that all hands are on deck when they do get here. The projected date week that they will be here to assemble. Well, Smithville got theirs on Friday, and they will be assembled the week of September 9th. So I also have copies of school schedules and teacher things, so there is as little disruption to classroom learning process. Let's see. We are also getting new cafeteria tables at the grammar schools, and with the exception of 3 tables at Smithville, the other ones are pretty old and they're pretty difficult to maneuver and manage. They have punchy things on them, so those will be disposed of. The following inspections, certifications have been completed since July 1. County asbestos, backflow preventers, interior, exterior bleachers, fume hoods in the science labs, fire alarm panels, and alarm systems, including an upgrade for a few of those that we've had to do. Sprinkler heads and systems, fire extinguishers, kitchen hood fire suppression, and the Smithville water treatment plant. And additionally, we've replaced and repaired some of the mechanics at the chemical pumps serving the cooling tower at the high school, middle school. And then countywide kitchen hoods have been deep cleaned, new air filters have been installed, and grease traps have been emptied. So, that's it. Any questions?
I'm trying.
It's been a busy summer.
Other than ask for rain for the schoolyards, I don't know what else to ask you for.
I would, if I could do a rain dance, I would. I promise I would. So it has been extremely busy summer. So I hope that you guys have seen Harrisville. It actually looks phenomenal. Those guys were in and out like crazy. It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the consent agenda, number 3 through 12.
I ask that you would approve items 3 through 12 as listed on the agenda. You have a variety of things there, volunteers, include transportation. You also have teacher coverage, homebound, which were on the list, this 3-step pay increase, travel for athletes out of state, the ag program, work-based experience, as well as we, got our foster grandparent program, agreements. I'd ask that you approve those as listed on the.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve the consent agenda items as stipulated on the record. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Reed makes the motion, second. Mr. Hall will second. That was it. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have a policy, the opportunity to approve the new policy 1070 for Board of Education compensation.
I ask that you approve policy 1070 for the compensation of, for the Board of Education.
Do we have a motion for approval? Mrs. King makes the motion, Mr. Nelson will second. All those in favor, please signify.
Aye.
Those abstaining? Aye. So we have 2 abstentions, which would be Mr. Hall and myself. Next, we have waive reading and approve policy 7050 for student attendance.
I ask that you approve, that policy. It mirrors all of the information that, Mr. Clevenger just went over, and it is in line with the state legislature changes.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve that policy to be in line with state legislative changes. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Reed makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next we have resignations.
We have some resignations on the agenda. I would ask that you accept the resignation of Carson Nelson, English teacher at Ritchie County High School, Kelsey Wagner, athletic coordinator, Abigail Janchek was a restricted sub, Marcia Knight for the purpose of retirement. She was a PE wellness teacher at Ritchie County Middle School. I ask that you approve those resignations as stated on the agenda.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve the resignations as stipulated on the agenda. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Hall makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. How many years has Marcia been a teacher?
I'm gonna guess 35, 36.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next we have a resignation submitted after publication.
We have one of those this evening, Vincent Cantrell as a substitute teacher.
Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Nelson makes the motion, Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and next we have employment.
In employment, we have one that I ask that you approve for a family medical leave. And then we have a number of different, types of employment. Adam Davis is a restricted sub, Shatera Hicks as a restricted sub. Marcia Knight is coming back as a substitute teacher, that's a win. Lauren Flesher is a substitute teacher. Cassandra Morse is a substitute teacher. Sharon Beck just retired as a cook and is coming back as a substitute cook. Zach Foster, did you see this win? Substitute bus driver. Billy Mitchell Sims as a cook too. Jimmy Keener is moving to the head custodian at Creed. Michael Jones is switching buses to fill a leave of absence. Then we have a number of mentors. Kayla Myers will mentor a teacher at Creed. Holly Vaughn will mentor a teacher at Smithville. Regina Davis will actually mentor at 2 teachers at the middle school. Ronna Stanley will mentor 2 teachers at the middle school. Miranda Elrod and Erica Westbrook will be sports ticket takers. Brianna Bird will take the middle school cheerleading coach. And Rachel Parsons will be an authorized certified non-paid assistant volleyball coach at the middle school with your approval. I ask that you approve those as on the record.
Alright, the superintendent is recommending that we approve the employments on L3, which would be A to C, F to I, M, O to Y, and CC and DD. We have a motion for approval. Mr. Nelson makes the motion. Mr. Hall will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next we have payment of the bills.
I have a question. The mentor pay, is that for the state?
Yes, it is, because it comes as a one of the supplements. I will double check that, but I believe it does, yes.
I
Let
don't
me
think
double
it's
check.
very, yeah, but I don't think it's very much for all the work they have to do.
I will double check that and get back with you.
Okay.
And Marcia Knight has been here since 1988,
Oh,
36
wow.
years.
So I was close, I said 35.
Look it up. That's in my attachments.
Oh, I am so impressed. Way to go.
Way to go.
You like that, I should have known that.
Well, it says spend 35 years doing what I love, so maybe I just didn't math it, yeah.
Yeah.
35.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hall. I appreciate informed board members. So payment of the bills in the amount of $372,916.94. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Reed makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. You'll note many of the projects that Director Rice had talked about were in those bills this time. Well, not many of them, but several of them were mentioned. All those, any other questions, discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next we have financial requests for approval.
And then under finances, approval of the supplements, but then also 2, 3, and 4 are things she did mention, and that is to, declaration that the desk be made surplus, as well as the cafeteria tables be made surplus, and then to approve the pay app 1 to J.C. Bosley for the demolition project at Harrisville Elementary. And ask that you approve the financial request as listed.
Superintendent is recommending we approve the financial requests as stipulated on the record. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Nelson makes a motion, Mr. Hall will second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have any requests for agenda items for the next board meeting? Do we have any board member committee reports? I will just give you a friendly reminder that we do have to have a group photo today. Do not run away. Our next regular meeting is September 9th at 6 o'clock at the Ritchie County Board of Education office. The time is 7:29. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Oh, yes, and what's the date for that? I don't think I told them. I have to be able to tell you something. So we will have a student expulsion hearing on September the 3rd at 6 o'clock,
Right.
right here,
What?
September 3rd,
Tuesday.
6 o'clock,
next Tuesday, or this week from tomorrow, right?
week from tomorrow, because Monday will be Labor Day, so. Yes, I forgot completely to tell you all of that, so thank you for reminding me. Our next regular meeting is September 9th, the time is now 7:30. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Hall makes the motion, do we have a second? All those in favor, please signify.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Still want to raise your hand.
I do too.